with the sponsorship of the Degama Group.
Welcome to Rumbo Minero. My name is Jorge Leon Benavides, and I am going to develop this very important program. Very important also because we are going to play with Iván Arenas, who, as we all know, is a consultant and communicator in the mining sector. And communicator in the mining sector, we are going to talk with him about these 5 days of the environmental impact study, which should only take 5 days. Is it true? Will so much beauty be true? We are going to analyze in depth and technically this issue of the environmental impact study. We will also be with Pablo O'Brien, independent social management and communications consultant, to tell us a little about this first national summit of small-scale artisanal mining. Artisanal mining. In Chala, we are going to see how the conversations are going with the issue of differentiation between artisanal mining and illegal mining, a very important issue of billions of dollars. We are talking about $4 billion a year of movement. So we have to see how we can formalize and separate the artisanal miners from the illegal ones. Well, this is a very interesting program for all of you, but let's start with the main mining news of the week. Thanks to Gabriela.
Thank you, Jorge. These are the main mining news of the week.
The Ministry of the Environment took an important step towards streamlining the environmental assessment processes in the country by implementing a new admission procedure for environmental impact studies, which reduces the assessment deadlines to only 5 working days. Hochil Mining, with operations in Peru and other South American countries, reached a production of 5.8 million equivalent ounces of silver and 69,758 equivalent ounces of gold during the first quarter of 2024. The firm indicated that the volume of its Inmaculada mine in Ayacucho, Peru, and San Jose mine in Santa Cruz, Argentina, was slightly better than expected, including a first small contribution from the new Mara Rosa mine in Brazil. Maria Angelica Remusco, Ingamet's mining affairs advisor, stated that the digital one-stop shop will require the IT side of several public institutions to bring them all together on a single platform. Likewise, Remusco pointed out that the support her area will provide to the VUT will be to integrate new electronic formats. He pointed out that the institution works with great transparency.
Chicon. Well, we now meet Pablo O'Brien, an independent consultant in social management and communications. Pablo, how are you? Welcome to Rumbo. Pablo, I know you have been following very closely the first national summit of small-scale artisanal mining in Peru, in Chala. You were telling me that there were a lot of people.
That's right, 5,000 and probably 10,000 miners.
And well, there are 1,000 ways to call it, right? Artisanal, all the time we are in this discussion between artisanal, informal, and illegal. But what is your perception? What have you understood from this meeting? What are they asking for? In the introduction to the program, I talked about the $4 billion a year of commercial exchange between an informal, not to say illegal, informal, illegal activity. Illegal, informal, that the government is unable to get them to pay taxes or to put a good proposal on the table, right? How did you see this?
Well, this is a demonstration, let's say, of the point to which this whole process of informal, illegal, criminal even, mining has reached in Peru from, let's say, the pandemic onwards. The pandemic was a catalyst that accelerated this process, which was already a process that had been going on for a long time, that was generating a series of complications. But already after the pandemic, this has become an almost unmanageable issue. And I think it is one of the central themes, social, political, and economic issues in this country. In other words, informal and illegal mining is present in the 25 regions of Peru. It generates an extremely strong economic movement, has begun to change social structures such as community organizations, for example, which were so well structured, well, they are disintegrating them as well. That is, they are being taken away from the community. And on the other hand, they are now very strongly present in the politics, in the district politics of the regions where they are paying, in the regions where they are paying for campaigns. paying for campaigns, that is, in the Confederation. In this event that took place last Saturday, mayors have been present, representatives of regional governments have been present, congressmen and also presidential candidates have been present. So you see here a strong
activity, illegal activity, let's say informal. I mean, okay, it's a conversation, but...
Well, the truth is that it is a fact. They are there, and this always happens. That is, when certain groups, let's say social and economic groups, start to have power, obviously they want to consolidate that power, that economic power, through political control, and to be given the prerogatives they expect. This has always happened in history, hasn't it?
In this meeting, basically, what are they asking for?
What are they asking for? Well, they ask, in the first place, that this whole issue of persecution against them be ended. That is, that the formalization process becomes a permanent process.
That if it is permanent formalization, it is not formalization. It is like giving me a safe conduct to be able to mine.
Exactly, without any problem with the police, exactly. That is what they want, is basically that. That is the main, let's say, request, that the criminalization or persecution against this activity ends, if you will. Criminalization or persecution against this activity, so that this process be a permanent process. And the other issue is that of the concessions. They point out that in the concessions, there are idle concessions in which they want to participate. Now, the other day, talking to people in GV, they were telling me that there are concessions in Peru that they want to participate in. That there are concessions in Peru that you can access and acquire now, but they
illegal
don't want
without
those.
asking.
They want the ones they are in the ones where there are people, in the ones that are already owned by other people and where they have already invested money and are working, right? So, I mean, shares, of course. So there is a conflict here, right? There is a strong conflict, but it is a conflict that, in addition, if you see that there are peasant communities that are owners of the surface territories that are engaged in informal, illegal, or whatever you want to call it, mining, then you have a serious problem. Then you have a serious problem, because you, in order to be able to do mining in Peru, you need, if you own the concession, you need to have a contract on the surface land. And at the same time, in order to be formalized, you need, let's say, that the owner of the concession gives you a contract so that you can exploit it. So that is where this big problem lies.
Pablo, we have already talked several times about these issues with you too. Are there other countries that have had success stories or some mechanics that you can come up with? Well, I guess the first one is that the Congress does not pass a new extension or a constant extension, right? That's the first one, that there's no way we can allow Congress to approve such a thing, right? Because it would be like giving free rein to the illegality signed by the Congress.
By the government, right? By the Congress. Or simply to say, well, this formalization process is over, and anyone who wants to engage in mining activity can do it as he wants, right? Without complying with the regulations.
Another intermediate option is not to renew, and that it is an illegal activity, and that, well, that if the police fall, the police have a basis to be able to, but I don't think that's not the way to go, right?
The problem is that Peru has no capacity to enforce the law. I mean, you go to the corner, you run the red light, right? In other words, the Peruvian state at this moment, and that makes it in some way a failed state, is that it is not capable of enforcing the law. And in all these areas, for example, in Chala, where this event has taken place, further up in Seco, this event further up in Sococha, in the areas of Chumbivilcas, in La Rinconada, etc., there is no territorial control. Or, that is to say, the state cannot impose the law there.
It does not have the, let's say, the resources to be able to get there now. It is a help from...
Armed forces would fit. I believe that beyond that, we have to look for intelligent solutions. I mean, in the first place, we do not know at this moment, the Peruvian state does not know how many processing plants exist. So instead of going after the 500,000 illegal miners, you have to control the production plants. You can't move them. You cannot move them. And they also started to be given from this law that was given in the 2002, in which it was pointed out that from 100% of the need for artisanal mining, and that the concession plans could give the permits to the regional governments, and traceability as well. So of course, if you start to control those plants, right, where they are, etc., and SUNAT, etc., begin to intervene, I think that is the solution.
Besides, it is a good idea because by controlling those plants, they also have access to the miners.
In order to formalize them. Finally, those who finance the miners are the plants who provide them with money, etc., so that they can sell.
But there is an opportunity there.
There is an opportunity.
If the government allies with the plants, it could convince them to formalize in a certain way, right?
Of course, I think we have to look at that. We could also, in some way, this is a more controversial issue, and we would have to analyze it much more carefully and rigorously, the issue of concessions. In fact, they have a long time in which nobody invests, etc., and some conditions can be set to invest.
Of course, because their first problem is the territory. They are not the owners. They cannot speak.
Of course.
But the state should, in my opinion, not only concession in an orderly manner, and for concessions to be granted, you have to be legal, right?
Yes, of course.
But additionally, the state should be in charge of paying a fair price, because many of the miners, that could be attractive, talking about the attractive part, that exploit them a lot, pay them very little for the mineral, right? So if the government intervenes, it could also reach an agreement for a better payment, because the number of interveners better, because the amount of interveners that there are means that what they take out of the land is not at the market price. Not at a market price.
The problem they have is also that it is a cost problem. In other words, basically the exploitation is by hand, right? In many cases, but in other cases it is not, right? In others, for example, one can already see the entry of machinery every time the capitalization process is very high. It is very fast, isn't it? And it also has the capacity to transform very quickly, economic improvements in some populations.
Do you think so? You tell me about the plants, which I find very interesting, because it is a way not only for the government to control, but also for the government to help to formalize through that way. Interesting. Do you think the government, I know that businessmen are shouting at the top of their lungs, but could they talk of staggered taxes?
No. I don't know if that is part of the solution or if it could aggravate the problem, because you would be giving an incentive, right? What the miners, for example, were asking for, which I was very much struck by, is this situation of a similar labor regime, similar to the one that agriculture had before the reforms. In other words, why? Because in reality, they have a lot of people working, and they earn a daily wage basically for what they produce, right? So they wanted a regime of that type. That was one of the proposals made at a certain moment, which reveals that, and this is also interesting, isn't it? That they are actually small capitalists, right? That is to say, we should not be so frightened by the fact that much of their discourse is, let's say, that surrounded by populism, nationalism, etc. But in reality, they are small capitalists, and this is a kind of wild capitalism in which I do not want any regulation. That is, I do not want issues such as labor regulation. I do not want environmental regulation, because that is the other big problem. But I do want to continue in this economic activity, don't I? So there is an opportunity for negotiation. I think they are small capitalists, but they want wild capitalism. That is evident, isn't it? And this is shown in many places. In transportation, it is exactly the same. I do not want to pay tolls. I do not want to be regulated by the ATU. I want to go on the roads wherever I want, in the car I want. It does not matter if the passengers are killed on the way. It does not matter. I want to earn money. It is to earn money. It is not a public service. It is not a public service.
Now,
that's a little bit idiosyncrasy, culture with.
I think it's interesting because we have to turn it around. We have to turn the subject around, and the only way is for them to be interested in a proposal that, at least, for example, the last proposals were formalized, and they were immediately dropped in large numbers, right? I don't know if there was an accompaniment to achieve something, right?
What happened is that they were cancelled in large numbers because they were in third-party concessions, which did not comply with the main thing, which was to have this agreement with the concessionaire. So what I think is that here we are in an entrapment. It is 500,000 people or 300,000, I do not know. We don't know either. There's a lot of effects too. It moves the economy, it generates a series of things, but it also generates a lot of problems. That is to say, we are going to have serious environmental problems later on because crime, the issue of crime, the immersion in politics, all these phenomena, delinquency, prostitution, trafficking in women, children, labor issues, you know what I mean? So yes, it is necessary to order this, and it is necessary to order it well and that it is complied with. But I believe that the issue has to be sincere. This goes through a process. We are necessarily in a democracy of negotiation, but also with issues of law enforcement. And the state has to take seriously this situation, that it cannot have liberated territories where there are illicit economic activities and a series of human rights abuses, right? We need to solve these problems. And I think we have to start taking the bull by the horns, because this is an issue that is going to be very serious in the future. It's going to be a very important issue in the coming years. Excellent.
Pablo O'Brien, thank you very much
Thanks
for
to
being
you.
with us and always so clear in your concepts. Let's see how this issue that has been worrying all of us will move forward. Because we have not been able to turn it around, because we Peruvians have not been able to in the last
I do not know how many years to formalize,
I
right?
would say, to begin with, on both sides, I would say yes to formalize, but to give an adequate proposal, an interesting one, as you say, there are places to negotiate. So we have to turn the issue around. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. You. Okay, let's go now to Gabriela Chicoma and Expomina. Go ahead, Gabriela.
Thank you very much. Expomina Peru, the largest and most important mining event of the year 2024, with 16 years of trajectory, with the special participation of the United States as the guest mining country. Expomina Peru is the only Peruvian event certified by the United States Department of Commerce. Do not be left out and be part of this great mining event. Reserve your booth at Expomina Peru. For more information, visit our website www.expominaperu.com.
Well, entering our America Mining block, we link to New York directly with José Gonzales from Wall Street, international editor of our magazine Rumbo Minero, to talk about interesting topics such as Anglo-American and BHP sites, BHP, and on the way to Expomina. Jose, how are you? Welcome.
Very well, Jorge. Thank you. Nice to be with you always.
Jose, last week, the financial markets and the corporate mining world were surprised by BHP Group's unexpected bid to acquire Anglo-American PLC, an acquisition that would cement BHP as the world's largest copper producer. The announcement coincided with copper prices that exceeded $10,000 a ton, a level it had not reached since the beginning of 2022. What is the status of the negotiation, and what is the status of this offer? We know that a first stage was rejected, a first offer, but you see that an agreement is going to be reached. Tell us a little bit about it.
That's the way it is, Jorge. BHP's proposal for Anglo-American did not ask for value to the company in dollars of dollars and has been rejected in principle by Anglo-American as insufficient, with the financial markets expecting, however, BHP to improve the offer. Anglo-American, listed on the London Stock Exchange, has a market cap of dollars. After the offer, it rose to US and has a complex structure as it produces copper in Peru and Chile, platinum, diamonds via De Beers, majority shareholder of the world's largest diamond producer, coal, potash, and iron and steel concentrates in South Africa. BHP has requested in its offer that the iron concentrates and platinum divisions be divested prior to any acquisition, and is expected to dispose of other divisions as its main focus is on copper production. Anglo American had been considered a takeover target as its market value fell by $1 in recent years due to problems at its mines, with falling production and rising costs, difficulties in its fertilizer business, falling diamond and platinum prices, and logistical bottlenecks in South Africa. In view of these problems, BHP's offer could well, on the other hand, generate what is called a bidding war, a competition among acquirers, and it is speculated that the interested parties are Glencore, Rio Tinto, Barrick, Vale of Brazil, Vedanta of India, and Zijin of China. BHP had considered acquiring Freeport-McMoRan or Glencore before opting for Anglo American. The specialized press points out that this interest of BHP is almost 3 years old in terms of structuring and execution. BHP's interest, according to Bloomberg, underlines the interest of the large mining companies in copper production to the extent that not enough mines are being developed for the demand that the decarbonization process discounts. According to Bloomberg, as mines are falling in production, mining companies need to invest $150 billion between the years 2025 and 2032 in order to meet the potential demand, leading, as mentioned in last year's CAP, to consolidation among large producers. Hence, copper prices have exceeded $10,000 per ton this week. There is currently no gap between supply and demand in the markets are looking ahead, and BlackRock, the world's largest investment fund, has indicated that prices must exceed $12,000 a ton to promote the development of new mines, copper in the world's largest copper producer. Of new mines, putting copper in the spotlight of the financial markets and the mining markets.
Okay, changing the subject and going into our own. You, as coordinator of Confimin, of the conference, big mining conference that is going to take place in Expomina, in our fair, in September, from the 11th to the 13th of September. Tell us a little bit about one of the forums that is giving a lot to talk about in these years, such as the Leaders Forum for the Mining of the Future.
Delighted Jorge, the discounted decarbonization via electromobility and the energy transition sanctioned at COP28 in Riyadh continues to underscore the role of critical minerals and mining, as is well underlined by the proposed acquisition of BHP from Anglo American based on an apparent inevitable structural deficit in the global copper supply. Such dynamics and the announced consolidation of global mining corporations, as mentioned in last year's PDAC, underscore the role of mining in the creation of new energy matrices with the renewed relevance of mining activity that must modify narratives about the activity anchored in past prejudices. New legislative initiatives in the United States, the European Union, and strategic plans such as Brazil's foreshadow a new era of appreciation of formal mining. Thus, the Leaders Forum for the Mining of the Future seeks to bring together the leaders of the main national and international mining companies to discuss their experiences, the projections of their companies, as well as the challenges and opportunities of mining in Peru. All this within the framework of the global and regional mining evolution, in addition to the Peruvian one. The forum is chaired by Victor Gomez, President of the National Society of Mining and Petroleum and CEO of Antamina. And like all other forums, will have a panel of 4 people, mining leaders of international and national mining companies, knowledgeable in the respective space, who together with the leader of these, along with Victor Gomez, will address all aspects related to the subject.
Thank you very much, Jose. We look forward to having this and other topics, of course, in our magazine, Rumbo Minero. If you are a supplier or want to be a supplier to the mining sector, the leading magazine for the mining sector is Rumbo Minero. Enter www.rumbominero.com and you will be able to access the magazine free of charge every 45 days. A new edition with all this great information. Thank you very much, Jose. My pleasure. Okay, next we go to the AMSA Mining Assets blog.
Activos Mineros. AMSAC is a Peruvian public company with a great purpose: to give life back to the planet. Thus, we are dedicated to contributing to the sustainable development of the country through mining environmental remediation. In AMSAC, we recover the areas affected by high and very high-risk mining liabilities, which are in a situation of abandonment or in which the state has not identified the responsible parties. In this line of work, today we are present in 11 regions of Peru, with a portfolio of 65 remediation projects, which are located in different phases. Promotion of private investment. In AMSAC, we represent the Peruvian state as counterpart of the transfer contracts of important mining projects, and we also supervise the fulfillment of the commitments and obligations that are part of such processes. Today we are leaders in business management systems. Among the 35 companies of the Fonafe Corporation, we have ISO 9001 certifications in quality management, ISO 14001 in environmental management, ISO 37001 in anti-bribery management, and ISO 45001 in occupational health and safety management. At AMSAC, sustainability and care for the planet are our DNA, and therefore, we are proud to contribute to creating a better world through the recovery of air, water, soil, and ecosystems impacted by mining liabilities, and thus contribute to 10 of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals by the year 2030. Giving life back to the planet is more than a simple phrase for us. It is the guide of our daily actions, with which we have a positive impact on the lives of thousands of Peruvians, and through them, on our country.
Well, we now meet Iván Arenas, communicator, political analyst, and specialist in community relations. We are going to talk a little bit about various topics. Iván, how are you? How are you? Welcome, Iván. Thank you very much. Regarding the changes to speed up the environmental impact studies, it is also said that it is a relaxation. How do you see it? In the best sense, forgive me for going around the question. They are talking about 5 days, but to pass the environmental impact study. But we know that figures are sometimes given out wildly. They are very political pieces.
The thing is that we have to put the concepts on the table. So we are saying, for example, that there are, it is being said that there are several things. The first is that there is a flexibilization shock or an anti-environmental. The first is that there is an anti-environmental shock on the part of the Ministry of the Environment or the Ministry of Energy and Mines. In this case, specifically, the issue of the modification in the environmental impact assessment system is basically from the Ministry of the Environment. But what it says is that the admission of the environmental impact study is reduced to 5 working days. The admission of the environmental impact study. It never says the review of the environmental impact study. Who have come forward is to say something. Yes, that
is only to present it.
That is the same thing. It is that, look, let's see. What happens is that, according to the current system, it should actually take 10 days, but normally it takes 6 months. Why does it take 6 months? It takes 6 months because whoever does the procedure, whoever admits the procedure, takes the discretion. And that's important to say, an important word, to be able to review whether the terms of reference are subject or the environmental impact study is subject to the terms of reference. Indeed, you should review it. It should review the form, but it should not review the substance, because the substance is an evaluation of the evaluation system of the environmental impact study that is more profound, that should not be done in the admission procedure, but should be done specifically in a second procedure, that is the evaluation procedure of the evaluation. It is impossible.
Is it possible to do it in 5 days?
Yes, of course. Why is it 1? Of course, because you present a document. That is to say, the 6 months...
in the 6 months, it is a bureaucracy.
It is unnecessary. But that is why I tell you, the issue of admission, I mean, you go... It is
yes,
you go to that document, they tell you, sir, come back tomorrow. It is like this work, right? But it takes 6 months. Approval is another...
Approval is something else.
Approval is something else. Approval is something else, because approval includes an evaluation by many institutions. But one thing is evaluation. Nobody says, nor in this change does it say that they will be evaluated in 5 days. It is irresponsible to say that they will be evaluated in 5 days. They are confusing. It is an admission procedure. I have simply said that before it was, as I said, 10 days. Well, I remember, right? 6 months. But what happens is that before, and this is an important thing to say, there used to be 10 days according to the discretion of the processor, but now they will be 5 days, and it is already regulated. It is regulated under the law that has been changed, right? So it should be in 5 days according to the law. It should be from now on. But as I said, what is going to be admitted is, and it is important to say it, is the admission procedure of the environmental impact study. From the
The evaluation of the environmental impact study is going to take as long as it always takes.
And this is a pending matter because in principle, it would take 6 months to 9 months, depending on, basically they are talking about 150 days, which will be reduced, which will be not to be reduced, that the 150 days are going to be fulfilled or should be fulfilled, 156 days if I am not mistaken. But do you know how long it takes? It takes about 4 to 5 years for a review of the environmental impact study, and a modification takes so long. So the idea is that it should be, again, according to the legal procedure, according to the specific procedure, according to the law and the regulations, it should be between 150 days to 160 days at the most, but it takes 4 or 5 years. So we cannot do that. There, what I am telling you, it is important that the Ministry of Energy and Mines, like the Ministry of, or like different ministries, try to promote what is called the...
I have the impression, Ivan, that the government is looking for... Government is looking in mining like some small data that may sound bigger than it is, like the one-stop shop.
But for approvals,
for example.
Sure, be that way for everybody, but for approvals.
There is a big fuss about it, but some people think that the one-stop... Some people think that the single window, phase 1, phase 2, is simply to put the documents and put them in virtual. But the approval, as in the same case of the environmental study impact, the approval is not that.
It is assumed that the approval will be now. It is assumed that with these changes also in the modification of the system, it is assumed that it will be faster because some kind of tables have been set up, some kind of meetings between the different institutions that have to evaluate an environmental management instrument, as in the case of the EIA or the case of the MAIA, which is the modification of the system, or the case of the MEA, which is the amendment. Several amendments have been made in some way or another. Several amendments have been made, right? But as I say, what we would have to move forward is that mainly the single window for mining, which integrates several institutions, about 16 institutions, but 10 are definitely should move forward so that, as I said, not only these procedures, these admissions are much faster, but also, as I said, the evaluation of an environmental impact study itself should take from 150 days to 180 days at the most. Now, there is no limit.
They have not set a limit.
They have set a limit. There are environmental impact studies that have taken years.
That take years.
According to the law, there is a limit that is 150 to 180 days. But as I said, they take 4 to 5 years. So they are not complying they are not complying. That is when you go, they say tramitomania, but in fact it is tramitology. But it is said tramitology. In effect, it is not because they do not want to do it, but because they do not do it.
A company could sue the state for non-compliance.
Difficult because somehow or other the institutions cover themselves and say, well, we have to continue. That issue has not been fulfilled. Here we have to absorb some doubts, observations, in short. They can, exactly. But as I tell you, the 150 or 180 days also contemplate all that. What happens is that there is so much bureaucracy in this country.
Sometimes they talk about administrative silences for those issues.
For that we need, of course, the one-stop shop. But as I tell you, really.
No, really. No.
Of course, a one-stop shop, not a PCP. It is basically a matter of everything, of the whole system, the productive chain. It is time, Ivan, to make serious decisions. Completely. Look,
sometimes,
it is clear. Also, that is, they make decisions that are a bit deceiving.
I think
we need absolutely serious decisions on the part of the institutions. We need to act now, don't we? And if we cannot do it, we are going to stop to take advantage of this enormous opportunity that Peru has with respect to the alcoholic, fundamentally, right?
We are going to radically change the subject. The issue of the postulant, apparently, Antoro Humala, has first made statements of a complete lack of knowledge of Peruvian mining. He does not have the slightest idea, as we are already accustomed to his statements. But I do not know if I should call him a candidate because I do not think he can be. But at least he is a radical political group that in addition has very clear dangerous ideas against Peruvian mining.
Look, he has given opinions in Cajamarca. There is a group of them, a group of his party that is called Antauro, that he says that it is his party, then he says that it is not his party, but they have given it in Moquegua, right? But basically he says many very false concepts, and it is very easy. Let's see, what surprises me is the capacity to lie, the capacity to say so many, not only lies, look, so many, to radiate, to develop so many false myths, right? They take numbers from everywhere. They take out that mining. How do they produce? How do they produce? How do they produce? How do they produce? Mining. How do they produce gold that is not approved? I mean, there are 170 tons produced, for example, by informal mining, and those 120 are from informal mining, properly speaking, because they go through the Sonada, and 50 are through Bolivia. That is to say, data like that more or less exists, but what does not exist is the data he has said. Then he said that he is going to nationalize transnational mining. Does he not realize that in mining, in other words, it is nonsense to say what he said? Second, he has talked about illegal mining as if illegal mining were also mining in the process of formalization. He has talked about informal mining and only that he is going to open it up. That he is going to open it up, that he is going to support it. But in mining, remember that in informal mining, that is to say, in those who are within Reinfo, around 80,000, around 60% are basically payaqueros. They are itinerant producers. And with that, it is not possible to formalize. It is very difficult. So he knows absolutely nothing about modern mining or informal mining. And what makes me feel uneasy is that he tries to represent a world that he does not know. And that is a world in which he is in an absolute contradiction, because he is basically a payaquero. He is a payaquero. He is a payaquero. He says, to be a leftist in Peru, we have to be nationalists. So we must assume that he is a leftist. But there is another issue here, that leftist thinking is not basically inside, inoculated, and realized in the thinking of popular mining capitalism, the popular mining capitalist, the mining entrepreneur who is informal or who is in the process of formalization and wants to formalize, has nothing to do with Antoromal. Antoromal represents nationalization, statism, savage bureaucratization.
He's looking for resources for his campaign.
But he is probably also looking for it in criminal gangs or in illegal mining, which is not informal mining. The informal miners would be wrong. They would be flat wrong to even look at Antoromal as a possibility of political representation. They would be a bad image. Not only that, of course, but conceptually, ideologically, they are absolutely distant. One, as I said, is a nationalist statist who believes in statists, and the other is basically a mining capitalism, popular mining capitalism, in which the state puts a lot of obstacles. The regional governments, the regional mining directorates put a lot of obstacles.
But there is also one thing, is there not the risk of the political parties that they cannot receive illegal money? That is exactly right. That is almost to disqualify it.
Exactly. Of course, then I believe that the informal miner in the process of formalization it seems to me, should settle with the opinions that Antoromal has made, and Antoromal should finally stay with what he intends to stay with, which I believe is the way it is directed, with illegal mining, with an illegal mining that we cannot negotiate in Peru, that we cannot even agree on, and that is not the mining in the process of formalization that tries to formalize, as I said, but that has another spirit compared to the spirit that...
And they go again, mining abused in political campaigns, used as meat. Completely, of course. Yes, I mean, you do not know how to think formal mining, modern mining, mining that respects social and environmental standards, modern mining in this country that has made this country competitive, that has reduced poverty, that has generated a huge middle class. I do not say that, and that is in the data. Now, the incredible thing is that modern mining becomes a piñata again. Look, if anything has been settled in Chile... Iván...
If something was settled in Chile and it was understood by the left and the right, it is that mining was basically the bread of Chile. In Peru, mining is still the bread of Peru. And here the left denigrates mining, and some liberal sectors do not want to get involved in the issue either, despite the fact that mining generates a GDP of close to 1%. If you take the suppliers with everything, close to GDP. In short, only one mining operation is capable of producing close to 1% of the GDP. Mining operation alone is capable of producing close to 1% of GDP, more than $2 billion. So, mining has generated so much development. There is an agro-export miracle and a mining miracle in Peru. And yet, these two pillars, and fundamentally mining, have no clear representation, nor does anyone put their chest out to say that this is a mining country of everything. It is a country of everything.
You as a specialist in political analyst, specialist in community relations besides, the communities of Peru, you have walked a lot in Peru. How do you feel as a Peruvian see that there is so much money in the informal sector? There is talk of $4 billion. How do you feel as a Peruvian and as a community relations specialist, seeing that there is so much money in the informal sector? To see that these communities could develop differently if we were on the road to real formalization. On the road to real formalization? Of course I do.
As Peruvian, look, B, it is disappointing that informal mining, or mining instead of formalization, is still not formalized, because if they wanted to, they could do it. They could do it. But if in addition, evidently because of the bureaucratic obstacles, it is more, look at B. It is important to be able to informalize them, they are talking about a fee of, for example, in the last meetings I have had with them, because of the meeting they had in Chala, they're already talking about a canon for small and medium mining, artisanal mining, that is important because there is a fundamental change in them. Then all the money that could be produced, it is important to be able to informalize them. All the money that could be produced, all the money that could be obtained, if Peru would have a clear decision to formalize its informal mining, which has been forgotten, would also produce an inexplicable surprising shock in the regions where it is developed.
An example for the illegal ones.
But,
well, look at you.
Look at you. They would also have fundamental economic development options. For example, in Anane, there are 2 or 3 cooperatives that are making a change of technology substitution. They are exporting gold. But what you are telling us is,
that there is a good amount of gold that we can work with. That you can work with, but you have to be willing to do it.
That, yes, the government has to have the government in general, the whole government in general, and the political society, the Congress as well, has to have a feeling of formalization towards informal mining, because if not, it is going to win us over. And some of them will obviously say, hey, why don't we go with Antauro? Hey, why don't we go with some leftist representative? Because he says he is going to get rid of informal mining and we can stay there. That cannot happen. Then Peru has an enormous debt with that, and we must once and for all take the bull by the horns, as they say.
Well, thank you very much. Iván Arenas, communicator, political analyst, and specialist in community relations. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Next, we are going to listen to Gabriela Chicoma with an announcement from Expomina. Go ahead, Gabriela.
Thank you very much. Expomina Peru, the largest and most important mining meeting in Peru in 2024 with 16 years of trajectory. Do business with the mining sector of Peru and America. Expomina Peru from September 11th to 13th, 2024 at the Yoken Lima Exhibition Center. Portfolio of mining projects in Peru for more than $53 million and portfolio of mining projects in America for $450 million. Invest with the leaders. Participate in Expomina Peru 2024. For more information, check our website www.expominaperu.com.
Well, coming to the end of the program, well, our 2 analysts, Pablo O'Brien and Iván Arenas, talk to us about mining constantly in political campaigns. At the moment, we are again experiencing a mistreatment of formal mining and rather an alliance with formal mining. And rather an alliance with illegal mining by some candidates. Peru definitely needs to understand that if it then complains about its congressmen and congresswomen for thieves or whatever, or if it then complains about its president, it is because it has elected him. I appeal to all Peruvians to really realize the importance of to put their beards in soak, to really think for a while about the candidates. We don't need crazy people, we don't need radicals, we need people who can let us work and who can let us work and who can make Peru have a good economic environment for our work to bear fruit. That is all we need, and that way there will be more taxes to always fight extreme poverty and poverty in general. Extreme poverty and poverty in general, which is what our country needs so much. So from here we make a call, because illegal mining definitely has the resources for candidates who are nothing more than radicals, who do not want the best for Peru. Good. Thank you very much for being with us. Next comes Peru Constrike.
Years of successful trajectory, Expomina Peru, the largest and most important mining event of the 2024, will open its doors from September 11th to 13th, which will be chaired by Luis Rivera, Executive Vice President of Goldfields Americas region. For 3 days, Expomina Peru will bring together the main mining suppliers in a 47,000 square meters venue with more than 1,270 stands and the participation of international delegations. With the latest technology in machinery, equipment, products, supplies and services, with purchase intentions for more than $700 million, and which will be on display for the more than thousands of visitors that are expected to receive. Within the framework of Expomina Peru, the 6th edition of the International Mining Conference CONFAMIN will be held with 10 important international forums, the Latin American Congress on Logistics and Supply for the Mining Sector, the International Copper and Lithium Congress, and the technical congresses Mantemin and Procesmin. In addition, as part of the news that Expomina Peru brings, the first International Congress on Green Hydrogen and Alternative Energies will be held, where important and renowned professionals will present the opportunities and challenges of the new energy matrix. Reserve your stand and participate in the most important mining fair of the year 2024, Expomina Peru. Do not hesitate any longer. Invest well. Invest with the leaders. We are waiting for you from September 11th to 13th, 2024 at the Yoke Exhibition Center. More information at www.expominaperu.com.